I'm sure everybody watching this video is at least vaguely familiar with the 1994 MLB player strike. The season came to an end on August 12th of that year, with the final 6 weeks and the entire postseason getting cancelled. There were a lot, and I truly mean a lot of personal milestones and team achievements that we potentially missed out on. The most famous of which is Tony Gwynn's quest at 400 batting average, having a mark of 394 at the time of the stoppage. For team achievements, the most notable one involved the Montreal Expos. They had the best record in all of Major League Baseball when the season ended. They would never make the postseason for the rest of their duration in Montreal. While the Expos are the most famous what-if team scenario from this season, one quirk and potential achievement I don't see discussed often involves the Texas Rangers. When the season ended on August 12th, Texas was in first place in the American League West Division. What makes that fact notable? Well, not only would it have been the first ever postseason appearance for the Rangers, but at the time of the stoppage, Texas was 10 games under 500. I've seen weak divisions before, but having a record that terrible and being in first place that far into the season is unheard of. How exactly does this happen, and what could have occurred if not for the strike? Ironically, it was the Rangers themselves that did everything they could to prevent this from happening. In September 1993, the 28 team owners took a vote on whether to expand the playoffs for 1994. 27 owners voted yes, with Texas being the lone team to vote no. Why they voted no is beyond me. Entering 1994, the Rangers had never made the postseason, so it seems counterproductive to not increase your chances of a playoff appearance. In case you didn't know, the Rangers owner at the time was none other than the future United States President George W. Bush. On the vote, Bush was quoted saying, "I made my arguments and went down in flames. History will prove me right." I would love to find out one day what exactly his arguments were. Anyway, the approved playoff expansion came with division realignment. The National League and American League grew from 2 divisions each to 3 each. The American League West was now made up of 4 teams: the Seattle Mariners, California Angels, Oakland Athletics, and of course, the Texas Rangers. Of those 4 teams, Texas had the best record in 1993 when they went 86 and 76, so it's likely they would have been considered the favorite to finish in first place in 1994. The Rangers were coming off a good season, had the advantage of a small division, and a roster of talented players. We'll go over those players in a little bit, because first, it's important to know that despite high expectations, this season was up and down for the Rangers to say the least. After a very strong finish to 1993, they got off to a slow start in 1994. Texas was playing below 500 initially, having a 23 and 26 record entering June. However, a great start to the month saw them rise to a 30 and 28 record. That would be the last time all year the Rangers were above 500. The club proceeded to lose 12 over their next 15, and by the All-Star break, had a 42 and 45 record. The struggles continued beyond the break, as they lost 7 of their next 11 games, eventually finishing the month of July 5 games under at 50 and 55. The lone bright spot of the month came on July 28th, when Kenny Rogers threw the 14th perfect game in MLB history, beating the California Angels 4-0. In spite of the historic game, the Rangers somehow got worse once August started. They went 2-7 that month, capped by losing a season-high 6 consecutive games right as the strike started. When the season came to a halt, the Texas Rangers were 10 games under 500 with a 52 and 62 record, which would equate to a 74 and 88 record across a full season. While 10 games under 500 is atrocious, it was in no way the fault of the lineup. The hitting was great, averaging 5.38 runs scored per game, the 5th highest in the American League. Jose Canseco led all Rangers hitters with 31 home runs, 90 RBIs, and a 939 OPS. Will Clark was second in OPS with a 932 mark, while leading Texas hitters with a 329 batting average, 431 on base percentage, and a 141 adjusted OPS. Other top hitters include Ivan Rodriguez, who had 36 extra base hits, an 848 OPS, and 118 adjusted OPS. Rusty Greer had 27 extra base hits, an 898 OPS, and 132 adjusted OPS. Juan Gonzalez had 41 extra base hits, an 802 OPS, and 105 adjusted OPS. He was also second on the team with 85 RBIs. The lineup was stacked and had potential to be the best in the American League that season. On the other hand, to say the pitching was just terrible would be a massive understatement. Rangers pitchers allowed 6.11 runs scored per game on average, the most in all of Major League Baseball. Their 5.45 ERA was the second highest, and their 89 adjusted ERA the third worst. There were only 2 pitchers on the team that threw at least 85 innings, starting pitchers Kevin Brown and Kenny Rogers. Kevin Brown had a 4.82 ERA and 100 adjusted ERA in 170 innings across 25 starts. Kenny Rogers had a 4.46 ERA and 108 adjusted ERA in 167 and a third innings across 24 starts. Those 2 pitchers were the only ones on the team that made as many as 13 starts that year, so who else made up the rotation? There were 5 other pitchers that made at least 6 starts for Texas in 1994, and they combined for a 7.13 ERA in nearly 280 innings. Some notable starting pitchers include Roger Pavlik, who led the Rangers rotation with a 7.69 ERA in 11 starts. Veteran Bruce Hurst was almost as bad, earning a 7.11 ERA in 8 starts. Rookie Hector Fajardo had a 6.89 ERA in 12 starts, but nobody stands out more than fellow rookie John Detmer. Detmer was actually the Rangers' best pitcher. He recorded a 4.33 ERA and 112 adjusted ERA across 9 starts and 54 innings. Somehow though, Detmer did not win a single game, having a record of 0-6. 17 Rangers pitchers won a game in 1994, but Detmer defied all odds to not earn one. It's nothing short of ironic that the Rangers couldn't give their best pitcher a single victory. Actually, let's look at that for a second. John Detmer started 9 games and went winless in spite of a decent 112 adjusted ERA. In American League and National League history, Detmer's 112 adjusted ERA is the record for best mark by a pitcher to go winless in a season where he started at least 9 games. I can't even fathom how that's possible given the Rangers' great hitting. Anyway, just like the rotation, the bullpen had just 2 reliable pitchers, Tom Hankey and Darren Oliver. Hankey recorded a 3.79 ERA and 128 adjusted ERA across 38 innings while saving 15 games. Oliver had a 3.42 ERA and 141 adjusted ERA across an even 50 innings. As for everybody else, there were 6 other relief pitchers who threw at least 25 innings. They combined for a 5.92 ERA in nearly 250 innings. The 2 notable relievers were Rick Honeycutt and Brian Bohannon. Honeycutt had a 7.20 ERA in 25 innings, while Bohannon had a 7.23 ERA across 37 and a third innings. Look, I get it was the steroid era, but the stats speak for themselves. The Rangers as a team allowed 697 runs that year, and yes, that was the most in Major League Baseball. 697 runs in 114 games is equivalent to allowing 990 runs in a full 162 game season. At the time, no team had allowed 990 runs in a single season since 1939. The team scored 613 runs offensively, giving them a run differential of -84. That was the 3rd worst in the American League, only behind the Minnesota Twins and California Angels. It wasn't as if they were unlucky, they were bad and deserved the record they had. Despite everything I've just said, the Texas Rangers found themselves in first place when the season ended. How does a team that's 10 games under 500 and statistically one of the worst in baseball finish in first place? As you can imagine, this scenario is more so a reflection of the rest of the American League West. Here's the full standings of that division when the season ended. The Oakland Athletics 1 game back, the Seattle Mariners 2 games back, and the California Angels 5.5 back. In case anybody was wondering, yes, these were the 4 worst records in the American League. It was simply a huge coincidence that everyone in the American League West underperformed that year. The Mariners and Angels were in a similar situation where their pitching struggled. California had a near identical ERA to that of the Rangers with a 5.42 mark, while the Mariners didn't fare much better, having a 5.99 mark. For context, the American League-wide average ERA was 4.80. As for hitting, the Rangers were the only one that performed well. The average runs scored per game in the American League was 5.23, and Texas was the only team in the division above the average. The Angels in particular were dead last in the league, only averaging 4.72 runs scored per game. Remember earlier I said how John Detmer set the record for best adjusted ERA in a winless season with at least 9 starts? Would you believe that someone on the Oakland Athletics almost accomplished the same feat? Rookie Carlos Reyes started 9 games where he went 0-3 with a 107 adjusted ERA. Prior to 1994, there was only one such instance of a pitcher going winless with at least 9 starts and posting a 100 or better adjusted ERA. It then happened twice in one season. If I had a nickel for every single rookie pitcher to do that in a single year, after only one such instance in league history, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Moving along, some people might be thinking, sure, all 4 teams were terrible, but at least the Rangers had a solid lineup. Couldn't they still manage a winning record since they got to face the other 3 teams often? About that, when it came to their opponents, the Rangers made no sense. They were decent against teams outside the West, but terrible within the division. Against teams from the American League East and Central, Texas went 44-40. Against the 3 teams in the West, 8-22. 8 wins in 30 games, and of course, one of those wins was the perfect game. I don't think I need to explain why losing against a division rival is more impactful than losing outside the division. Specifically, the Rangers went 4-6 against the Angels, 3-7 against the Athletics, and an abysmal 1-9 record against the Mariners. This is part of the reason why the 4 teams were so close in the standings. They were all bad, but since the other 3 beat up on the Rangers, they were never able to run away with first place and finish the year as division winners while being 10 games under 500. Personally, I don't think a scenario like this will happen ever again, for a team to perform that badly to still finish in first place. It would require the absolute perfect and precise set of sequences to all occur. Since 1994, the worst record by a division winner was 82-80 from the 2005 San Diego Padres. In the past 10 years, an 87-75 record by the Minnesota Twins in 2023. Even if we look at teams to just make the playoffs since 1994, only 6 had fewer than 85 wins, but they at least all had winning records. With the exception of 2 shortened seasons in 1981 and 2020, no MLB team has ever made the playoffs with a losing record. I know some people might be thinking right now that there was still roughly a third of the season left to play, so the Rangers might have finished the year with a winning record anyway. Sure, that's possible, but let's see what would have had to have happened. The Rangers played 114 games in 1994, leaving only 48 left. They would have to have finished the year going 29-19 just to have an even 500 record. If they finished the season going 24-24, they'd have a 76-86 record. Remember that I said earlier, a 52-62 record expressed across a full season equates to a 74-88 record. Imagine a 74-win team winning their division. We were robbed of a lot of things in 1994, from career milestones to personal achievements. The craziest scenario we missed out on was what could have been the one and only time a team made the playoffs in a full season while having a losing record. The 1994 Texas Rangers might have been an offensive powerhouse, but their sloppy pitching hurt them so much, they were rightfully one of the worst teams out there. Despite that, at 10 games under 500, they ended the season in first place. They will forever be the worst division winner in MLB history.